Do you know how to walk a pattern? I do, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. If you've been following along with me, I shared how to figure out cap height when you're working on fitting a sleeve into an armhole, and then I also showed how to adjust a pattern, a sleeve pattern for cap height. Today what I want to do is show you how to deal with the ease after the cap height has been adjusted. And the first thing I just want to do here is I want to show you how to walk a sleeve into an armhole. I got a few questions about that after the last video I did, and I feel like I want to just do an updated version of walking the sleeve. So basically I've got a sleeve here, and I'm just going to put my back notches here and my front notch here. So this is the back side of my sleeve. This is the front. Okay, and then I've got an armhole here that we're going to use to walk it. So I'm going to start in the back. You want to walk your pattern so that you're aligning the edge of the paper together, so the cut edge together, but you're pivoting on the stitching line. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your sleeve pattern. This is my back armhole. This is my sleeve. I'm going to turn it so it's right sides together. Now you'll notice I use Sharpie marker to mark my seam allowances. The reason why I do that is because I can see through the paper and it makes it very easy to line these things up. So to start out, what you're going to do is you're going to line up the edge of the underarm with the edge of your side seam like this. And then I'm going to just put up something pointy here. I'm using my seam ripper right now. You can use a stiletto or even a ballpoint pen, something that will allow you to hold that so it doesn't slide as you're pivoting around. So notice what's happening here. My edge of my cap and my armhole are not in alignment. So I'm just going to go ahead and pivot it until they are in alignment to here. And then I'm going to go off into the seam allowance where it's in line. That'll allow me to pivot it some more. And I'm following along these edges like this, repeating this procedure, moving my stiletto or my seam ripper up along the stitching line where it starts to diverge. So when the sleeve cap starts to go like this and the armhole starts to go like that, that's where I put my pointy thing, and then I just keep rotating the cap like this until I get up to the stitching line for the shoulder seam. We're not going to go to the edge of the actual shoulder. We're going to go to the stitching line because the seam allowances are not included in the measurement. So I've come to my stitching line, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line right here, and I'm going to put a B for back. That means my back sleeve goes, and I'm just going to use a different color here so you can see what I'm marking. Okay, so that means my back sleeve fit from here right up to this line. Okay, that's my back. Then I'm going to repeat this procedure for the front. All right. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to line up the underarm edge with the side seam. I'm going to use my sharp tool to pivot me along. Like this. And you can see I'm just making sure, whoops. You can see I'm just making sure that the edge of the paper is aligned with each other, and I'm just pivoting on my stitching line. Okay, so here we are at the front. So I'm going to go ahead and put a line and put an F here. And let's turn it around and look at it. Okay, so my front went to here, F. That means the front took up this space right here. Okay, so we've walked the sleeve, and what that tells us is how much ease we have. How much ease do we have? You figure that out by measuring between your lines like this. So this is the ease. Now notice I'm not marking it on the edge of the cap, I'm marking it on the stitching line because that's where you want to measure your ease. So then I'm going to use my clear grid ruler. I'm going to bend it like this so I can measure how much ease I have on my stitching line. And I have 2 1/8 inches of ease. That is way too much ease for a set-in sleeve, even in the plus sizes. So for me, I like to have, in the smaller sizes, 1/2 inch, 5/8, and then medium sizes could be 3/4. And then when you get to larger sizes, you could have up to 1 inch, or maybe possibly even 1.5 inches of ease. But 2 1/8 inch is way too much. So here is an easy way to adjust your ease. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to decide how much ease you want to have in your cap. So let's go with 1 inch. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure over 1/2 inch. And this part I'm coloring in here, that's my ease on the back side of the cap. Then I'm going to measure over here another 1/2 inch. This right here is the ease for the front side of the cap. And then you can see what's over here. I still have a little more than 1 inch of ease. We don't want any more ease. So what I'm going to do is one very easy adjustment to get rid of this ease. And this is something new. I have not shared this on my channel. That's why I wanted to come on and share this today. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my 1/2 inch seam allowances on my underarm seam because I want to pivot on my stitching line here. So I've got one there. And I'm going to put it over here too, just in case. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to draw a slash line, and I'm going to draw it right at the end of where my ease is in the front, like this. Okay, so see how my slash line goes right to there. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slash that, and I'm going to pivot at my underarm stitching line. So before I slide this over, okay, before I do the adjustment, I just want to show you something here. The cap height for this sleeve is 6.5 inches because if I'm doing seam allowance to seam allowance, it would really be down here. So this is my bicep line right here, okay, and then this is my seam allowance right up here. So if I measure my cap height, I am at, we will say, let me just draw it here. We are at I'm going to say 6.5 inches. Okay, that's the cap height. So I just wanted to make a note of that for you so you can see what happens. Then what I'm going to do is, after I slash that diagonal line, I'm going to drag the front over so that the cut edge is touching the edge of the back ease that we made a note of. So see, it's right there. I'm going to then tape this down. And what I want to show you here is we dragged this sleeve, you know, kind of over like this, right? We pivoted it this way. So let me just redraw a neat line here. I'll draw it in pink this time. Okay, so if I remeasure my cap height, you can see what happened is I lost that 1/2 inch because, so when I drag this part of the sleeve up, this is the cap height, because if I measure over here in the back, I lose that 1/2 inch. This is only 6 inches now. But if I measure here, it's 6.5. So depending on how your sleeve was fitting, you can either trim that little bit off, or you can take some extra paper here. Let me put a little green paper here and just tape this on. You can also, if you want to maintain your original cap height, you can just come in ever so slightly and fill that back in. And you can see it really is a slight amount that you're, you know, adding back in. So like if I trim this off now, you'll see that you know, it really just adds that tiny little bit, but it maintains your cap height. So that is how you get rid of ease really simply. Now, if you have inches to remove, and that could happen, you can do the same thing. You can do it part way going in towards the front, and then you could do a second slash on the other side and finish it on the other side. You repeat it from the other side to close that gap. So just know if it's too much to remove from one side, you can I would say if it's more than an inch that you need to remove, I would split it in half and do 2 slashes. But you would do the exact same thing. The only thing you want to check after you do that is whether or not you still have bicep room. And I can see here I lost about a generous quarter of ease on the bicep. So if you had a little bit of extra ease to play with, you're going to be fine. But if you really needed that ease, you're going to have to adjust your sleeve to put that ease back. And since I'm sharing all these good things, I'm going to show you how to do that too. So basically, to add ease back in, you make yourself a vertical line and a horizontal line like this. And then you cut off the cap along the bicep line. Okay, and then you spread the cap the amount you need to add back in. So if we lost a quarter, I'm going to go ahead and spread that a quarter like this. Okay, and then you cut the bottom of the sleeve, pivoting at the wrist end, and you basically put it back together like this. So you want to touch your originals, and you can see what's happening here. You can see what happens here is when you touch the cap and lower part of the sleeve together here, it opens an equal amount on either side, on on the front and back underarm edge. So what you would do is just fill this whole thing in with paper to finish the sleeve. So you will be making your underarm seam just a slight bit longer, but you're not adjusting anything else except for adding back the ease that you lost when you adjusted the cap with this diagonal slash. All right, so I think this finishes my sleeve adjustment series based on all this fun new stuff I learned when I taught my 3-day bodice fitting class in March. So I really wanted to share this with you because it really makes quick work of adjusting the sleeve pattern, and it makes it really easy to work with. So, just put strips of paper under there and tape them down, as you work. I'm not going to take the time to do that in this video, but basically, if your underarm seam, if the amount it spreads on your front and back underarm seam are not equal, that means you pushed one side out more than the other, so go back and adjust that. So maybe, double check all of that before you tape anything down. So just to recap this little mini series, I showed you how to find cap height using your fit muslin in part 1. Part 2, I showed you how to adjust the cap height based on what you got from measuring. And then part 3 is how to check for ease and adjust for that. I will put the links to part 1 and 2 in the description below, so if you missed any of that, you can check it all out. If you have any questions or comments, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. And I want to thank everybody for taking time to watch, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.